Well, hello there! So I've found myself in a bit of a pickle, a rather green and leafy pickle to be precise. I've spawned into a brand new hardcore world, which, as you know, means only one life. No respawns, no second chances, no cheeky do-overs. If I take a tumble from too high or get a bit too friendly with a creeper, that's it. Game over. The world deletes itself. And to make things even more interesting, I've given myself a challenge. I must survive 100 days, but I can only live in one specific place. As I looked around, surrounded by the towering colossal trees of a jungle biome, I knew this was going to be tough. The jungle is beautiful, but it's also one of the most dangerous places to start. The first order of business was simple: don't die. Easier said than done when you're surrounded by dark, shadowy places where all sorts of nasties can spawn. I punched a few trees, the classic first step of any survivalist, gathering just enough wood to craft a workbench and a few basic tools. The air was thick with the sounds of parrots and the rustling of leaves, but I couldn't let the scenery distract me. Every shadow could be hiding a skeleton. Every vine-covered patch of ground could conceal a deadly drop. My heart was pounding, a constant reminder of the single red heart that dictates my entire existence in this world. I needed shelter, and I needed it fast. And then, through a parting in the dense foliage, I saw it. It was a sight that made my jaw drop. A jungle temple. A magnificent structure of mossy cobblestone and vines, half swallowed by the relentless green of the jungle. It was perfect. A pre-built base full of mystery and hopefully some decent loot to get me started. Of course, it's also famously booby-trapped, which adds another layer of spice to this already nerve-wracking hardcore adventure. But this was it. This had to be my home for the next 100 days. It was a daunting prospect, turning this ancient, trap-filled ruin into a livable, safe, and maybe even stylish base. With my wooden sword clutched tightly in my hand, I cautiously approached the temple entrance. It felt like I was stepping into a storybook. The scale of it was just immense, with carved stone and a sense of forgotten history. I knew that inside there were dispensers loaded with arrows and a tripwire puzzle just waiting for a careless adventurer. One wrong step and my 100-day challenge would become a 10-minute failure. I took a deep breath, placed my crafting table outside the entrance, and prepared to breach my new home. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about conquering this temple and making it my own. The stakes had never been higher. The first week was all about making the temple less of a death trap and more of a home. My first task inside was to deal with the infamous traps. I crept along the main corridor, my eyes peeled for the tripwires. I spotted them glistening faintly in the dim light. Very carefully, I snipped the wires with my shears, disarming the arrow dispensers. The silence that followed was a huge relief. Next, I navigated my way to the lever puzzle downstairs. After a bit of fiddling and remembering the correct sequence, a section of the wall groaned open, revealing a hidden chest. Inside, I found some gold, a bit of iron, and a few bones. Not a jackpot, but the iron was a game changer. With the immediate threats handled, I needed to make the temple safe from the outside world. The jungle is dark, even during the day, and mobs were spawning constantly. I spent hours and hours crafting torches, using the last of my starting coal. I lit up every single corner of the temple, from the top floor to the hidden basement chambers. The warm glow of the torches pushed back the oppressive darkness, making the mossy stone feel a little less menacing and a lot more welcoming. I also blocked off the main entrance with a solid oak door, a simple barrier that made me feel infinitely safer when the sun went down and the groans of zombies echoed through the trees. Food was the next critical issue. My initial supply of apples wouldn't last forever. I cleared a patch of land just outside the temple, right by a small stream. The rich jungle soil was perfect for a farm. I tilled the ground with a newly crafted stone hoe and planted the first few wheat seeds I had gathered from breaking grass. I also started a small tree farm nearby, ensuring I would have a sustainable supply of wood without having to venture too far into the dangerous, unexplored parts of the jungle. It was slow, back-breaking work, but seeing those first green shoots poke through the soil was a massive morale boost. I was building a future here. By day 10, the temple felt less like an ancient ruin and more like a fortified outpost. I had established a basic mine shaft extending down from the temple's lowest level, slowly gathering cobblestone and searching for more iron and coal. I had a reliable source of wheat for bread and a secure, well-lit place to sleep. The constant fear of a sudden, unexpected death was still there, lurking in the back of my mind. but it was now joined by a growing sense of accomplishment. I had taken this dangerous, forgotten place and carved out a small pocket of safety. The foundation was laid. Now it was time for the real fun to begin, the renovation. With the essentials of survival taken care of, I could finally turn my attention to making this place look good. Living in a mossy cobblestone box just wasn't my style. I wanted to transform this ruin into a proper base, a home that felt both grand and comfortable. My first big project was to replace the floor. I spent days mining deep underground, gathering stacks and stacks of stone, which I then smelted into smooth stone. I carefully pried up every mossy cobblestone block on the main floor and replaced it with clean, polished andesite and smooth stone slabs, creating a sleek, modern pattern that contrasted beautifully with the ancient walls. It was a small change, but it made a massive difference. Next, I decided to give the walls a much-needed facelift. While I loved the mossy cobblestone, it was a bit drab. I wanted to introduce more texture and color. I ventured out into the jungle, carefully gathering materials. I found clay in the nearby riverbeds, which I baked into terracotta. Then I went on a dangerous expedition to find a desert to get sand for glass. I returned with my inventory full and began creating huge glass windows, letting the jungle light pour into the main hall. I also used stripped, dark oak logs and planks to frame the windows and create accent pillars, giving the interior a warm, rustic feel that complemented the stonework perfectly. The temple's layout was a bit awkward, so I started reconfiguring the space into functional rooms. The large upper chamber became my main living quarters and storage area. I built rows of chests, meticulously labeling them for wood, stone, mob drops, and everything in between. The ground floor was transformed into a grand entrance hall and crafting hub, with all my workstations, furnaces, smokers, blast furnaces, and anvils neatly organized. I even designated the hidden basement area, where the lever puzzle used to be, as my new enchanting room. The dark, secluded space felt perfect for housing the mystical power of an enchanting table. Throughout this process, I made sure to respect the temple's original structure. I didn't want to just tear it down and build something new. I wanted to enhance it. I kept the iconic shape of the temple intact, repairing the broken sections of the exterior with fresh chiseled stone blocks and mossy stone bricks that I crafted myself. I added hanging lanterns made with iron nuggets and torches and placed pots with jungle saplings inside to bring some of the lush greenery indoors. By day 25, the temple was unrecognizable. It was no longer a forgotten ruin. It was a thriving, stylish, and functional home, a testament to what you can build with a bit of imagination and a lot of hard work. Now that my base was looking rather spiffy on the surface, it was time to add a few surprises. This is a hardcore world after all, and you can never be too careful. I wanted to build some secret rooms and hidden mechanisms both for practical defense and, let's be honest, because it's incredibly fun. My first project was a secret entrance to my deep slate mine. I chose a seemingly ordinary section of the wall in my new enchanting room. Behind it, I painstakingly constructed a 2x2 flush piston door using sticky pistons, redstone dust, and a couple of repeaters to get the timing just right. The trigger was a clever one. Placing a specific book on a specific lectern would send a signal to open the door. With my secret mine entrance complete, I got a bit more ambitious. I decided the main entrance needed a proper defense system. Just having a wooden door felt a bit flimsy, so I designed a trap for any unwelcome guests who might show up. Just inside the main entrance, I replaced the floor with sticky pistons, facing upwards, covered by stone blocks to blend in perfectly. I wired them to a hidden lever disguised behind a vine-covered wall. If a horde of zombies or a particularly nasty pillager patrol came knocking, I could flip the switch and the floor would retract, dropping them into a deep pit below. It was a simple but effective way to say welcome to my home. My next secret project was a hidden treasure room. Every grand base needs one. I hollowed out a large area deep beneath the temple's foundation, far below my mine shaft. Getting the entrance right was key. I decided to use the natural water features of the jungle. I found a small, unassuming pond a short distance from the temple. At the bottom of this pond, I built another hidden piston door. The only way to open it was to trigger a secret button concealed underneath a lily pad. Inside this vault, I started storing my most valuable items: diamonds, emeralds, gold, and any rare artifacts I'd found on my journeys. It was my emergency stash, completely hidden from the world. These redstone projects took a lot of time and resources. I spent days routing redstone dust through the walls, trying to hide all the circuitry so it looked seamless. There were many moments of frustration when a piston wouldn't fire or a circuit wouldn't connect, but the satisfaction of seeing it all work was immense. By day 40, my temple was more than just a home. It was a fortress of secrets. It had hidden passages, defensive traps, and a secret vault. It felt truly my own. A structure that was not only renovated, but also imbued with my own brand of creativity and paranoia. The jungle was dangerous, but inside my temple, I was the one in control. Life in the jungle is, a constant battle for survival, and honestly, no amount of renovation can change that. The lush green world outside my temple walls was as deadly as it was beautiful. Creepers were a particular nuisance, with their silent approach being a constant threat to all my hard work. I had more than one close call where I'd turn around from my farm and see one hissing right behind me, forcing me to make a mad dash to lead it away before it could blow a crater in my base. I learned to always listen for that dreaded sssss, and to keep a bow and arrow handy at all times. The jungle canopy also made spotting phantoms at night nearly impossible until they were already swooping down on me. Exploring the immediate surroundings was also a challenge. The terrain is incredibly difficult to navigate, with a mess of tangled vines, massive trees, and hidden ravines. I spent a good amount of time building a network of simple bridges and staircases around my temple, creating safe pathways to my tree farm and mine. But, venturing further afield was always risky. I once fell into a hidden cave system after some loose gravel gave way beneath me, landing in a puddle of water with only a few hearts left, surrounded by the glowing eyes of spiders. It was a terrifying reminder of how quickly things can go wrong in hardcore mode. One of the biggest threats, however, came in the form of a pillager patrol. I was harvesting cocoa beans from a nearby tree when I heard the ominous sound of their horn. I ducked behind a tree and saw them, a captain and his crew marching straight towards my base. My heart leaped into my throat. A raid would be devastating. I quickly retreated to the temple, my mind racing. I grabbed my best iron sword and my bow and prepared for a fight. I used the temple's architecture to my advantage, shooting arrows from the roof and using the narrow corridors to funnel them into one-on-one fights. It was a long and stressful battle, but I managed to defeat them, my hands shaking afterwards. Despite the dangers, the jungle was also full of life. I began to appreciate the unique mobs of the biome. I found a family of pandas tumbling around in a bamboo thicket not far from my base. I spent ages just watching them, their playful antics a welcome relief from the constant tension. I also managed to tame a couple of ocelots by patiently feeding them fish I caught from the river. They became my loyal companions, their presence not only warding off creepers, but also making the large, quiet temple feel a little less lonely. These moments of peace and connection with the jungle's wildlife were what made all the danger and hard work worthwhile. After solidifying my home and surviving the jungle's initial onslaught, a new feeling began to stir within me. Curiosity. My little corner of the world was safe, but what lay beyond the dense canopy? It was time to expand my horizons and go on a proper adventure. So, I packed a bag with all the essentials: food, torches, a bed, tools, and my trusty diamond sword, which I had finally crafted after many hours of mining. My goal was to map the surrounding area, search for other biomes, and see what treasures this world had to offer. It was a daunting step, leaving the safety of my temple fortress behind. My first major discovery was a massive cave system that I stumbled upon while following a river. It was a network of colossal open caverns dripping with vines and glowing with lichen. It was breathtakingly beautiful, but also crawling with mobs. I spent several days exploring its depths, carefully lighting my way as I went. My bravery was rewarded handsomely. I found my first diamonds gleaming in a cavern wall, a discovery that made me shout with joy. I also found a lush cave biome hidden deep within the system, a magical place filled with axolotls and spore blossoms. It felt like discovering a secret prehistoric world. The journey wasn't just about caving. I built a boat and decided to follow the river downstream, which eventually opened up into a vast ocean. The change in scenery was staggering. After weeks of being surrounded by the claustrophobic green of the jungle, the wide open blue of the ocean felt liberating. I sailed for days, discovering small islands, coral reefs, and even an ocean monument looming in the deep. I marked its location on my map for a future adventure. I was nowhere near ready to take on the Elder Guardians. I also found a shipwreck, which I carefully looted for a treasure map. Following the treasure map led me on a cross-country trek, through a savanna and into a desert biome. It was here I finally dug up the buried treasure. The chest was filled with gold, iron, and a heart of the sea, a truly rare find. The desert also provided a crucial resource I had been desperately seeking: sand. I spent an entire day gathering stacks upon stacks of it to take back for future glassmaking and concrete projects. This grand expedition was a huge success. I returned to my jungle home, tired but triumphant, with a full inventory and a map filled with new points of interest. The world felt so much bigger now. With a wealth of new resources and a taste for adventure, it was time to face the next great challenge, the Nether. I knew that to progress towards the end of the game, I needed materials that could only be found in that fiery dimension. I needed blaze rods, nether quartz, and ancient debris. But I couldn't just build a portal out in the open. That would ruin the aesthetic of my temple. It had to be a secret. I decided to build my nether portal in the secret vault I had constructed deep underground, the one hidden at the bottom of the pond. It felt like the perfect place for such a dangerous gateway. Building the portal was the easy part. I had mined plenty of obsidian during my caving expeditions. I constructed the frame, took a deep breath, and lit it with my flint and steel. The portal roared to life, its swirling purple energy casting an eerie glow across my treasure room. Staring into it, I felt a familiar mix of excitement and dread. The Nether is unforgiving, a place where a single mistake can lead to a fiery end, and in hardcore, that end is permanent. I kitted myself out in my best diamond armor, enchanted with some basic protection, packed my bags, and prepared to step through. My first steps into the Nether were cautious. I emerged on a precarious ledge overlooking a vast lava sea in a nether wastes biome. The air was thick with heat and the sound of ghasts crying in the distance. My first priority was to secure the area around my portal. I quickly built a cobblestone bunker around it, a small safe room to retreat to. Cobblestone is gas-proof, a lesson I learned the hard way in previous worlds. No sooner had I finished than a fireball exploded against the wall, shaking the entire structure. The Nether was already living up to its reputation. I spent the first day just mining netherrack and quartz nearby, never straying too far from my little stone box. The main prize I needed was a nether fortress. After several nerve-wracking excursions, bridging across lava lakes and dodging gassed fireballs, I finally spotted one in the distance, a dark, imposing structure of nether brick. The journey to it was perilous, but I made it. Inside, I battled wither skeletons and blazes, their fiery projectiles a constant threat. It was an intense and chaotic fight, but I managed to find a blaze spawner. I carefully fought off the blazes, collecting the precious blaze rods they dropped. With a dozen rods in my inventory, I made a hasty retreat back to my portal, my heart pounding the entire way. I had what I came for. The path to the end was now open. Returning to the overworld felt like coming home. The green tranquility of my jungle temple was a stark contrast to the hellish landscape I had just left. With the blaze rods I had acquired, I could finally craft a brewing stand and, more importantly, Eyes of Ender. My next big quest required a creature I had yet to encounter, an Enderman. I spent several nights hunting in the nearby desert I had discovered, a biome where they were more common. It was a tense process, staring into their eerie purple eyes to provoke them, then quickly fighting them before they could teleport away. Slowly but surely, I collected a stash of ender pearls. Now came the moment of truth. I combined the blaze powder from my hard-won rods with the ender pearls, crafting my very first Eye of Ender. I walked out to the clearing in front of my temple, took a deep breath, and tossed the eye into the air. It shot upwards, hovering for a moment before flying off towards the southeast. The journey had begun. I followed the eye, throwing it periodically to check the direction, trekking across mountains and forests. It was a long pilgrimage, taking me far from the comfort and safety of my home base. Each throw of the eye felt like a step closer to my destiny. The journey was not without its own set of dangers. I had to build shelters each night, fight off mobs in unfamiliar territory, and carefully manage my resources. I crossed massive rivers and climbed sheer cliffs, all the while following the guidance of the mystical eye. Finally, after several days of travel, I threw the eye, and it went straight down into the ground. I had found it. I was standing directly above a stronghold. I dug straight down, my shovel and pickaxe working furiously, until I broke through stone bricks and into a mossy corridor. The air was stale and ancient. I had arrived. Navigating the stronghold was a challenge in itself. It was a labyrinth of winding hallways, libraries, and dead ends, all patrolled by silverfish and other mobs. I had to be methodical, lighting my way with torches and blocking off corridors to avoid getting lost or ambushed. I fought my way through its crumbling halls, my diamond sword flashing in the dim light. After what felt like an eternity of searching, I found it. The end portal room, sitting ominously over a pool of lava. Most of the frames were empty. I walked up to the edge, pulled the remaining Eyes of Ender from my inventory, and began placing them into the frames one by one. With each placement, the hum of the portal grew louder, building to a crescendo of power. This was it, day 100, the culmination of everything I had worked for. The end portal stood before me, a swirling, star-filled gateway to the final challenge. I had spent the last few days back at my temple, making my final preparations. I enchanted my diamond armor with the best protection I could afford, brewed potions of strength and slow falling, and crafted a powerful infinity bow. I packed my inventory with golden apples, stacks of blocks, and a water bucket. I stood one last time on the roof of my renovated temple, looking out over the jungle that had been my home, my sanctuary, and my adversary for so long. It was a strange, bittersweet moment. I journeyed back to the stronghold, my mind focused. The path was familiar now, a well-trodden route to my destiny. Standing before the portal again, I felt a profound sense of finality. This hardcore world, this single life had all led to this moment. There was no turning back now. Win or lose, this was the end of the 100 days. I thought about the first day, finding the temple, a terrified survivor with nothing but a wooden sword. Now, I was a seasoned warrior, clad in enchanted diamond, about to face a dragon. It was a journey I was proud of. With a final, steadying breath, I leaped into the portal. The world dissolved into a dizzying swirl of color and sound, and then I was there. The end. A bleak floating island of pale stone under a dark, starless sky. Pillars of obsidian stretched towards the void, and in the distance, circling menacingly, was the Ender Dragon. Its roar echoed across the empty dimension, a sound that sent a shiver down my spine despite my confidence. This was the beast I had to defeat. The final boss. The ultimate test of my skill and preparation. I immediately got to work. I pulled out my bow and began shooting at the end crystals atop the obsidian towers. Each explosion rocked the island, enraging the dragon. It swooped down, spewing purple fire, forcing me to duck and weave, placing blocks to shield myself from its deadly breath. It was a chaotic dance of survival, a deadly ballet on this floating rock. I was down to my last few arrows for the final crystal, perched high on a caged tower. I would have to climb. As I began to pillar up, the dragon turned its massive head, its glowing purple eyes locking onto mine. It let out a deafening roar and charged directly at me. My 100-day journey was about to end, one way or another.